we have the conflict going on in Russia and Ukraine, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on that and how that's overall affecting. But a quick little side note here is just, I think we had Jen Psaki and Biden cut off the oil and gas from Russia recently, I think as of today. And at least here in the state of Florida, we're hitting all-time highs in gas, and I think the average across the country is, I believe, at $4.11 per gallon, which I think, at the end of 2020, it was just around $2 or under $2.50. So we're seeing everything, not only gas, but food prices and everything else skyrocket. And so to your point, SB, the inflation being reported as, a couple percentage points obviously isn't taking these prices into effect either. So how do you think like the Russia and Ukraine situation is going to play out? Do you think, we're just kind of in the way of the Jack Dorsey hyperinflation, or do you think we'll somehow figure out a way how to cool this thing down?
On our current track, I don't think we have the right answer, or we have heard the right answer from the current administration. I mean, I think it's a combination of factors. When we think about the pandemic over the past couple of years, people were driving less, so production in our refineries was lowered, and it never increased to meet the demand once things open up back up. But then also you have an administration that is highly resistant to oil, and they've put all their chips on the table for green energy. And frankly, the rest of the Western Hemisphere has done the same. We've seen the EU, they've really just hindered themselves by becoming overly reliant now on Russia to provide oil, and they don't have the means of providing their own because they've gone so far into green energy. And right now, what we're hearing is that the solution to all this inflation is, yeah, we're going to cut off Russian imports of oil, which I think was the right call to be frank, but they're not countering that by then saying we are going to now be autonomous and providing our own oil. They still want to pursue these virtue signaling green energy pursuits, and it's not going to answer the problem. And we're not hearing any empathy from the administration. We had Pete Buttigieg on the other day and Jen Psaki just saying, it's your patriotic duty. You can buy an electric vehicle, which costs what, $60,000-$70,000. So they're trying to say that's the solution, and it's not. For the average American who relies on oil, if that's part of their job, they're feeling real pain right now. So I don't see us on our current track. I don't see that resolving the issue that we have now.
Yeah, on the energy point, part of the last episode title we had was on our podcast, U.S. energy policy stays woke while Americans go broke. So this is exactly what's been happening where, yeah, the U.S. opened themselves up, and the West as well, to Russia having a lot of power here. I mean, I did think it was interesting today when you had this ridiculous reversal in stocks when I think the headline that came out was that Russia was, or I think the headline was that Ukraine was open to signaling they would not be, or committing that they would not be in NATO. And then I think stocks pretty much, or like the tech stocks, they went up from, maybe they were -1% on the day to 2%. And I think I forget exactly where we ended, but basically that shows you that if and when there is a resolution, there's probably a lot of upside. I know Bitcoin like quickly jumped out to up above 39K. So I think that's the positive. And if you think about what Russia wants to accomplish from their perspective, I could see a situation in which it's not an immediate win by Russia. It's not an immediate conquering of the country, which I think some people kind of initially thought. But Ukraine's a pretty big country, right? So it's not going to be anything that settles down immediately. But could this be done in 4 to 6 weeks? Maybe. I mean, we don't know for sure, but it seems like Russia's making, progress according to them to take parts of Ukraine. So if we do end up getting a resolution, I think there's a positive, which the market today obviously kind of implied. The problem, of course, is that if and when we do get that resolution, we still have high inflation. We still have terrible domestic policies. We still have the Fed deciding on whether they want to raise interest rates or not. So it's not like we kind of get out of the war and then it's totally gangbusters. And now I'm seeing that maybe GDP growth for the next quarter could even be negative. And I just think that's just ludicrous to consider that the economy, the output was so negative in 2020 when we shut down, and it's still not back to normal. And yet we might even have a recession soon. So that's just unbelievable. So yeah, we've had a pretty significant decline. Not that we can't decline further, but the trouble is just that there's not much to look forward to on the other side of this conflict ending. But certainly, I think a conflict ending and there not being nuclear war is a positive. Obviously, it's a positive, but you're starting to see a lot of kind of experts say, and people in the market say, yeah, I am worried about a nuclear war. I'm not saying it's 50% or even 25%, but it's kind of creeping up the probability list. And if that's the case, then that means if there is not one, then we can, rip back a little bit. But yeah, generally it's just it's a tough market out there. It's really volatile, and there's a lot of there's a lot of negative news out there beyond just one of several options. So yeah, it's a tough one.